everybody. This is Jen Harris with the Kansas City Artists Coalition. Today, I interviewed Meg Wagler with the Midwest Festival, Mid by Midwest, drop the .com. The event is taking place September 10th and 11th, 2022 in Springfield, Missouri, and you are all invited. So be sure to check that out and enjoy the interview with Meg. Is that your work behind you?
No, but every time I have a call in this space, someone asks me about that. I think, it's one of those things where you they say that you end up marrying somebody that looks like you, you're, I just buy a lot of different types of art, or at least I feel like they're different, but apparently it all looks like my style.
You have such a unique and vibrant style. So, I mean, it's a compliment,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I cannot take credit for these. They're just fun, colorful prints that I loved. And, it's, the rest of my house is, so this is my home studio is where I'm at now. And the rest of my house is actually almost uncharacteristically natural, like a lot of natural woods and navy blues and, just real calming kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my studio space. So you walk in here and it's immediately it's super bright and total energy shift. So it's nice.
I can fully respect walking in and needing the energy to change in both environments as a creative myself. It's nope, not every room can be the library.
Yeah, man. COVID was weird where, we were all here and just like everybody trying to make our space work for what we were, all the things we needed it for. And that's when I really realized how important, as a visual, as a creative, visuals are always that it matters, but just how much it affected my energy levels, it was kind of eye-opening. So I invested a little bit more time and energy into making this space exactly what I needed it to be, to walk back here and be okay, it's go time.
That's fantastic. Well, tell me about your art and your art practice. What kind of art do you make? What do you consider yourself, or do you consider yourself a specific genre artist?
That's a good question that I get asked a lot. And I don't know if I have a great answer to it, which maybe means I don't know if I have a category. I was trained, so my art degree was focused on graphic design and illustration out of Missouri State University. And so I think because of that, I have a really heavy, influence coming from graphic design history. So a lot of postmodern type, when computers first started coming around, of course, graphic design dates way back before that, but that postmodern era and really bold kind of graphic type concept posters. I could think Alfred Hitchcock movie, artwork. And I think I was really influenced by a lot of that. And then I worked in branding for, about 10 years in different, outlets. So ad agencies and in-house stuff. And so I think just working in graphic design for so long, it's just influenced my art style in general, to where everything is, I think my nature is to be really messy and disorganized, but my nurture has had to rein it all in. So all of my artwork is just the dichotomy of those two things meeting, right? So there's a lot of organic motion and flow and weird stuff going on, but it's always really tight compositions, super clean line work, so it's always this super bright color, but weighted with dark black or white or something like that, where it's always a balance. But I think that's the only, I don't know if that's a style,
Yeah, it makes sense when you explain it, but also entirely unique to you. How did you, I feel like some people have a moment, some people don't, but when did you decide at your earliest memory that you are an artist, you wanted to be an artist?
My earliest memory, I remember I was just telling somebody this not too long ago. I have this really vivid memory of, like a lot of kids, I watched a bunch of cartoons, and we didn't have cable, so it was like whatever was on the antenna on Saturday mornings, that was how we rolled. So I
People
watched a
don't
lot
know
of
what we did for TV.
yeah. Yeah, it was a like, you had to get the antenna just right or whatever. And I remember we always got Scooby-Doo. And so I watched a lot of Scooby-Doo, and I remember thinking like, this is cool. How do they get this flat artwork to like move? And so, I started to just and I was, young elementary school, so like second or third grade. And just trying to figure out and looking into, and of course this is like before Google was Google and all that stuff. And so just getting curious about how to make animation and those little flip books. And so then I started, I would ask for like Scooby-Doo, like material so that I could trace his picture, like the picture or whatever. And then I started making flip books out of it and stuff like that. So, I mean, like I was a young kid and just trying to toy around with that stuff. And I knew I loved it. Like that was like my first big memory of, I want to figure out how to make this art and like how it works and the curiosity of it. And then I think it just has always been there. And, I was like, once I got to high school and I started making kind of what my career path looked like, I looked at a lot of different types of stuff, just because I'm curious about a lot of different things. But ultimately, it just kind of kept coming back to like, what do I get the most joy out of doing? And it's, somehow being creative, and I think the graphic design route is it almost like the responsible artist choice, right? So like you can monetize and make a career out of graphic design, and you get to create artwork and find these creative solutions and different avenues. And it's a pretty dimensional career path. I just, after doing it for about a decade, I just kind of was like, this isn't exactly right, so like trying to figure out how to bake a little bit more of my own, creative juices into what I was doing and go from there.
Absolutely. Well, so you are the founder of Mid by Midwest, is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
All right. So that is a big thing to hold. And before we get into talking about that festival, I guess I wonder, what made you decide, or were you doing it before, that you wanna host this space, that you want to be in charge of all of these things at once? Like, how did you come to the precipice of this? Because I imagine you built toward it in some way, whether you're building community, or developing your art visibility. Like, tell me how you got here.
Sure. So, I will say that right now, being a week out, I'm absolutely in this mode of like, well, this was really ambitious.
That's fair. That's fair. I've been there.
A lot of stuff going on at one time. But, I think it's always been, it is an insanely ambitious project. It's not unachievable, it requires so much work and coordination, and trust and belief from other people. So it's just a lot. But I knew, my husband and I were, neither one of us are from here in Springfield, but we met down here in college. And we didn't really have intentions to stay here. We don't have any ties here, and it wasn't like a super sexy city, nothing about it was really making us stay. And so we, he had lived down in Georgia for a little bit, and we traveled to Atlanta to visit friends, and he lived up in the Washington area for a bit, and we have friends up in Portland and Seattle, and we have friends in San Diego and San Francisco and Denver, so like all of these really like known culturally, like rich places. And when we would visit, we would be like, when can we get down here? We'd be looking at real estate, looking at how we can make the move realistically, like within our work schedules or budget or whatever. And around, this was kind of like ongoing for years after we had graduated, and we're kind of trying to find our footing with our careers. And along that same timeline, this city started to pick up this sort of unexpected momentum, like in Missouri in general. Kansas City is a great example where this sort of flyover mentality started to shift a little bit. People started listening a little bit more to people coming out of these areas. And I started to kind of get this inkling of like, well, why couldn't we do it here? Like why, because one of the things I love about Atlanta is, the Beltline and just a lot of the street art, like down in Dallas, it's always art centric. Everything that pulls me to a lot of these areas is, and not a certain type of art either, just like different parts of the towns or whatever that have their own vibes. And, like Krog City Market and Ponce City Market. And, there's just these totally different vibes that come to life through public art. And I just was at this juncture in my career where I was deciding to kind of exit, the design kind of like agency setting. And it just fell into place where I could see it working here with the momentum we were building. It was going to be a little bit of a stretch, but I asked around a lot of the organizations that are already doing work here, and really there was a lot of support for it, but just nobody to do it, to like be the guy to go out and make all of the coordination happen. And so I saw an opportunity to just kind of throw myself at it and make it work here. And I think as soon as it started, it was already bigger than what I anticipated, because there was so much excitement of like, oh my gosh, we're, like this, this city, this region, like this town, like just the art community in general, the more of this type of camaraderie and like opportunity and platform that we create, not just locally and regionally, but like interconnecting to other creative ecosystems. And like, that's, that's the magic of living creatively. And I think, it certainly is ambitious, but after, working to get it together, I think it's going to be really great.
Well, you've clearly been working for a while and working very diligently. The Kansas City Artists Coalition started in a very similar manner. It's been 47 years. And, this is Midwest artists, not necessarily wanting to go to the coast, wanting to know why. We've all moved to either coast and been like, pay attention to me, but also that element of why can't I raise a family here? Why can't I stay where my family is or my community is and really improve this space that I'm familiar with? Why do I have to go out to be considered a credible and viable source of art and art making? So I can completely empathize with you there. When you came to, and I know you said that it feels ambitious now, but when you came to the intentionality of creating Mid by Midwest, like what did you want to offer people? What was the big vision?
I think the bread and butter of what we're doing is centered around just understanding the value, and not just the monetary value, but just the inherent value of art in the community. A lot of times we consider art economically as like a philanthropic thing, right? Like you auction off these pieces and it goes towards a charity, which 100% there is a place for that. And I think it's wonderful. But artists create this like fabric that builds the community, that like binds the community together. And I think that a lot of places already realize this, and the places that do realize it invest in their arts programs. They invest in bringing in muralists to do these large scale installations. It's built into the city's funding, and that's infrastructure. And understanding that and and having a voice for that and building in more platforms and opportunities to execute and showcase that, that's where my kind of passion is, right? So like creating the space to elevate that existence of visual artists, but also how it integrates into the community and the gift that the community gets out of it, right? So like these placemaking efforts, like our city is really big on these buzzwords of placemaking and beautification and like making sure that people like, you know, like you got a pin drop on a map in Springfield and you're looking around, like, what are you going to see? Or in Kansas City, like, what are you going to see that makes you realize that you're here when you look around? And I think the answer to that is almost always art centric. You know, it could be architecture, it could be public art or whatever.
But we make it romantic.
Yeah, right. And I think, you know, it's kind of high time, at least here, that we kind of make sure that that's front and center. And that's always been at the core of what our efforts have been. You know, just again, like binding that the community to the art experience. And so for us, you know, seeing it unfold is totally different than stumbling upon it. Like both are great experiences, but watching an artist work on a piece and then getting to keep that piece is a wild experience, especially at a large scale. And so that's where like the festival idea started, is how can we get people to come out, make sure that these artists get paid, you know, get to keep this art for the community and involve people in the experience so that it feels like they have some ownership in it, right? Like they're proud of it and they can say, look, I watched this, you know, like this artist do this. And, you know, so that tangible experience is kind of what has snowballed and built out the whole experience of our festival. So like these immersive art installments, you know, we're tucking in, instead of going to like a huge amphitheater, we're tucking stages into like alleyways and, you know, like creating these really intimate moments where you're activating spaces in really unexpected ways. And it just feels weird and different and intimate and exciting, you know, like all of these things that make you just want to be there, you know. That's what we want to give, is just delight, you know, not like a standard, you know, here's my money and I see this thing and then I leave, you know, like just really building in that experience and making it special.
It sounds so thrilling and intentional. I love the idea that people are going to stumble across this. And I think that you really hit on an incredibly valid point I hadn't thought about at this angle of, you know, Kansas City has brought in a lot of festivals that involve street art specifically. There's a lot of paint on our buildings now, you know, because that's the vibe, right? But as we don't I mean, of course they're gentrifying the city, but they're not regularly building things, right? So that connection that people often have to being like, I remember when that was a field and not, you know, this building. I think you're kind of recreating the nostalgia of that in offering art that's happening in real time, because people are seeing the before and the after. And
yeah,
it just feels really powerful.
I agree. And I think I don't want to, you know, it wasn't necessarily an obstacle in a negative sense, but certainly something that we have had to deal with as we seek out building spaces and kind of work with the city and building owners on where we're scouting locations, is we have a lot of just awesome old historic buildings. Mm-hmm. And our city has a landmarks association, and they're really concerned with wanting to keep those buildings like sacred, you know, because they're super cool old textured brick. And, you know, I mean, like, that's cool. Like, I want to keep that. But we also have a ton of just, you know, vanilla 80s style ecru walls and stuff, you know, like that were just slapped up real quick, right next to these old historical buildings. And in my mind, like, again, going back to my art style, like always this dichotomy or this like juxtaposition of like old and new, bright and dark, like How can we have this beautiful, rich history and texture in these buildings, and then right next to it have this, just amazing original artwork, and it feels like just something so special and unique, that's it. I would say it's a challenge, but I also think, like, what a cool opportunity to figure out a way to make those two things work together,
Absolutely. What do you want people to walk away with the feeling of? Do you have any aspirations for how it impacts the community?
I try not to guide, too much there, because I want everybody to have their own experience. But I think, I always say art is less about opinion and more about conversation, is something I like to say. And I mean, what, if you're talking about it, then it works. Then it's doing its job. You could hate it, you could love it, you could be thrilled about it, you could be annoyed by it, you could be indifferent and be like, meh, I feel like my kid could have done that, whatever.
That phrase that never gets old, does it?
Yeah, we've all heard it, there are people that I've talked to within the last month that think I'm a wonderful artist, and people that have insulted, that it's silly or not worth paying for, everybody has an opinion, but that doesn't change the artwork itself. And I think in something like this, we get to walk away as a community, just like a hyper local community, we get to walk away with 8 murals that we get to keep, right? And that's insanely valuable to me for the community. But I think, one of the things that's important for me to work on and to build is connecting different creative communities, right? So like, we're bringing in artists from Chicago and LA and local artists here in the area, and from Kansas City. And it's always about connections, right? Like, how can we just establish bonds, create our communities to where we can collaborate in the future. It's just like building these bridges, not just creatively, but opportunities just tend to present themselves once you have a bridge built, right? You get more connectivity out of that, and that's the ultimate goal. So it's a little open-ended, but I think as long as people come out and enjoy and watch and kind of have their own experience with it, I'm perfectly happy with however that rolls.
Fantastic. So you've got musicians, you've got live mural painting, you have the whole artist lineup and music lineup is on your link tree, Mid by Midwest. Drop the E on that. And then you also have the vendor and exhibitor applications. So this event occurs next weekend, right? September.
Yes. Yeah. It's next weekend on the 10th and 11th. We've got our music lineup, which I'm super jazzed about. I think we've got I don't know if can I say our headliner band? There's the F word in it.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah, that is true. So Starfucker is coming out, which I'm super jazzed about. Nambe, Dreamer Boy, and we've got Dream Girl coming out of Kansas City, Cat King coming out of Kansas City. Some just phenomenal local artists here. Ivy King, Joe San's coming back from New York City. He just moved out there. We've got Post X Nachos from Colombia, Fox Royale, just a lot of these kind of gem finds that I think are we're really excited to bring. So our music lineup is very exciting. And then our visual artist lineup, I'm just personally fangirling out about. I've painted with some of them. I've seen a lot of, just their work is phenomenal. And the fact that we get to bring them all here and paint together, I just think it's going to be awesome. We've got some great artists doing installments, vendors, beer gardens. We'll have some guys doing custom cocktails at our VIP lounge. Like we've got a pretty good mix of stuff going on. So we're excited about it. And I think it's going to be a great event.
Thank you for all your hard work. I'm so grateful to spend this time talking to you today, and I'm excited to share this this festival. So best of luck to you, and I'm excited to spread the word in Kansas City so that hopefully next year or the next time you host, we are able to get involved even more, because what a tremendous effort you're making.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the love, and I think we love Kansas City and connecting. So I'm super happy to chat with you, and hope that we get to see you next week.